So welcome. This is session number 4, and my name is Scott Ciabattari. I'm with Google. I'm with the Geo Enterprise team for state and local government with Google Enterprise. For those of you that want to contact me after this session, feel free to send me an email. I'm scottcia@google.com. I'm joined today by Tony from Verizon, and we're going to give you a 2 for the price of 1 session where I'm going to provide an overview of Google's Geo offering specifically for the enterprise, as well as some of the wireless enterprise trends and trends that we're seeing out there. Tony's going to come up and talk about Geo applications at the edge, as well as a demo, and then we're going to wrap with a Q&A session. So let's dive into it. One of the things that I saw with the wireless show is I certainly wanted to start with some metrics and what we're seeing as trends within the enterprise, as well as the consumer space. But as you see, a lot of that consumer technology comes over to the enterprise space. By 2016, 2/3 will be mobile workforce. So that's a pretty amazing number. What we're seeing in terms of the adoption of platforms, Android in the enterprise about to be forecasted 56% by 2016. That number could be higher actually. So we're seeing this amazing adoption of mobile technology, not only on a device level, but also from the OS level. And some of the things that you find from a common or most popular applications that are out there, obviously social networking, so Facebook is at the top, but quickly followed by Google Maps. And what we see at Google is that a lot of mobile searches start with mobile. They're looking at a device, they want to know where they are, what's around them, and how do they get to where they want to go. So, and then after Maps, you also see probably 4 other Google applications, including YouTube, which is which is our video hosting service that people are familiar with, and is actually a very popular search site as well. So when we look at Google being the world's #1 map, we see that maps are very popular on a mobile device, but really, how do we know it's the #1 map? I mean, everybody kind of claims they're #1. Some of the metrics that we have is that we have over 1 billion Google Earth downloads. And to our knowledge, that's the fastest application to that milestone of 1 billion. So a lot of people are viewing Google Maps and Google Earth, visualizing information. One of the more common is to see, okay, where's my hometown? But we're also seeing that within the enterprise, that visualization ability is empowering a lot of better decisions, a lot of efficiency, a lot of timely rescues. There's a lot that happens with that visualization. And then beyond that, at Google we have a lot of, we're very technical. About half the company comes from a technical background. So we're very API friendly, as well as open APIs. And what we've found is that in the adoption of Google Maps, we have over 900, the Maps API itself, we have over 900,000 websites that are using Google Maps API. In fact, that number is probably higher. It's probably at 1 million now. And in fact, we have more traffic coming to Google from Google Maps API than we do from the maps.google.com or the consumer site. So it's a testament to how easy it is to work with the API, so we're very developer friendly. Obviously we know we're very consumer friendly with 1 billion downloads of developers. And then we also know that we're very active with mobile users, so 450 million active mobile users. So really 500 million at that point. Now I take it these are global levels, but really that's what our service provides is at a global scale. So if you think of really we're 1 click away from any other option for any kind of mapping service, that's how finicky our audience can be. So we take a great pride in that and invest heavily into the Maps platform itself, and you'll see that in a second. And then the other piece is that in terms of investment, we have over 200 petabytes of imagery. So to put that in some context, we publish every 2 weeks more imagery than we did in the entire year of 2006. So every 2 weeks, we're refreshing at that rate. So one of the things is an accurate map. People want to see imagery that's current. People want to see addresses that are current, vector information, obviously. So imagery is one of the things that we take very seriously. And then also speed. We know that users like instant gratification as much as possible, and I think the internet has really driven that, where it's not going to be a click and wait type of scenario. You don't have that luxury anymore. People want to see something very quickly. So 1.6 million queries per second, and internally we measure these results in milliseconds, and we're always striving to do better. So it's something that's very fast and easy to work with. Some of the components that go into the map, so we know it's the #1 map, and then how do we invest in this? And it's really kind of three points here. One is the strategic relationships we have, and we're very appreciative of the public sector and government for the authoritative sources that are available. We certainly use that as an input into Google Maps and Google Earth, as well as some of the unique partnerships that we have with satellite companies such as GOI. So on a global level, we have imagery being published from GOI. And then we also have some of our proprietary collection pieces, such as Street View, which you saw in the first slide, perhaps. The cars are a little more colorful than this one here. So you're able to see that the Street View image, which is right down below here. And from that imagery, we're able to ascertain quite a few facts, whether there's a bike lane, for example, in the image itself. We know that there's some turnover with retail, but at that moment in time, we know that that's a Starbucks. We know if it's a one-way street. So in order to create a navigable map that we now own the base map. We're no longer licensing a base map, so we don't license from Navtech or TeleAtlas, at least in the United States, I should say. And that's something that we're able to do in terms of these updates, where very quickly we're able to look at this imagery and make those updates themselves. And then we also have the wisdom of crowds, where there's a crowdsourcing mechanism. There's a feedback loop, actually probably about 3 or 4 different points of entry feedback loops that come from users themselves. So if you could think of the reporters that are out there that could report a problem with the map, they're able to provide that feedback very quickly to us with a map issue. If there's a new housing development or subdivision, and they know that, okay, I'm going to have a housewarming party, and I want to make sure that, my street's on the map, they're able to put that street on the map. So we then see, we verify that through our own moderation process, and then we are able to update the maps very quickly. So from a map maker standpoint, as well as some of the issues that are reported by the public themselves. So I mentioned I'm from the Google Enterprise team, and Google Enterprise really takes that same consumer technology stack that the public is viewing. We bring that to the enterprise. So whether that's public sector, government, commercial, what have you. It's the same technology that is used for our consumer versions. So and the 3 pillars of enterprise are search, geospatial, and then the enterprise cloud. So within search, I think we're all familiar with the Google search box. This search appliance allows you to search and index multiple different sources internally within your agency. A very powerful piece here is being able to, the discovery of information. What we find is a lot of information has an address component to it, some type of geo-reference to it. And being able to see a spreadsheet with 1,000 addresses, or see that spreadsheet on a map, maybe with a heat map, to give you more context and reference. That's one of the more powerful things we're seeing with visualization. So I'll dive a bit more into the geospatial, but just to touch on the cloud itself. So these are Google Apps, Gmail, you might be familiar with, One of the things also with Google Apps is that people might be familiar with Gmail, but if they get Google Docs, they're also starting to see the collaboration that they're able to have within agencies. So one of the real benefits of Google's technology is that collaboration component, not only with the geospatial, but also with the apps themselves. So, and then they're also, on the cloud side, there's an app engine that's also deployed. So we have on-premise solutions as well as cloud solutions. So you think of a .com, okay, it's all cloud. We actually have quite a few that are on-premise, knowing that the security behind the firewall is very important as well. So looking at the Google's Geo solutions, we really define this by apps and then platform. So on the app side, we have a workforce asset management, or Google Coordinate, which is really a very fast way to deploy to a mobile workforce. I'm going to go a little deeper later in the prezo on that. So let me just kind of give you that overview right now. And then for Google Earth and Earth Enterprise, so that's the client that you install. So when you download Google Earth, you install it on your desktop. But Google Earth Enterprise is an on-premise solution. So again, using that same technology stack on the consumer side, you can bring that internally with your raster and vector and terrain information and create your own globe. Caltrans, for example, is one state agency that's done that here, Virtual Alabama, Virtual Maine. You see that quite a bit in across the country as well as across the world, as well as some classified agencies that we can't talk about. And then Earth Portable, we know that not every worker is going to be connected to a network, so we allow you to cut some of that map information and bring it onto a device, so that if they're disconnected from the network, from the wireless, then they're still able to do work. They're also able to do work, for example, with the Tokyo disaster. Volunteers from Los Angeles were able to see cuts of the region in Japan that they were going to go to, and they used that flight, the air flight of 10, 14 hours, to familiarize themselves with this new region that they were going to be involved with. So we see that in a number of different emergency response scenarios. Then with the Google Maps API, talked about that a bit earlier. It's certainly very powerful. It's not only the most popular Maps API, but it's the most popular API on the internet. So again, being very developer friendly there. And then wrapping up with Google Maps Engine, which allows you to create, process, and manage maps in the Google Cloud. So you can upload information, create maps, and then publish that very quickly, either internally to your own employees or to the public, so to the citizens themselves. One of the more familiar use cases we see is your common operating picture. It's really a term that is driving a lot of the decisions for crisis, and we've seen that, for example, at Katrina, I know very early on that Google Earth was used, and the governor was really quite impressed and was looking at this as, why am I able to see this information so quickly with Google? I've acquired all these data sets. I know there's budget. I've cut the checks for these. Why can't I see the information when I need to? So one of the responses that we also heard from from one of the agencies was being able to save people, knowing that the imagery and the street signs were down, and so being able to look on Google Earth, geocode where people were, and then go to that rooftop and actually save people. So it's really something that we've seen often in crisis response. Superstorm Sandy, you can see real-time information as well. So it really is a publishing platform that helps you aggregate, collaborate, and empower the responders that are out there at the highest level and also at the field level. So again, on the common operating picture, what you see is this is at Virtual Alabama, where they're also able to see before and after. So post-disaster, they'll also see what the effects are. So really in the entire life cycle, planning before the disaster, responding to the disaster, and then post-disaster, you're able to have one platform where you can collaborate. As well as, this is a fire engine. screenshot of, of locations and hydrants. And then this is another one with some of the school incidents that have happened recently. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot more demand for information with schools and intelligence and security about schools. So what you see here is a floor plan, as well as some of the pictures that are available, and that's something that you can publish as well. You can also have cameras there, you can have videos, etc. So they're really, really powerful operating or common operating pictures. And then again, we know that you're not always going to be connected to the network, so this allows you to extract our portable systems, where you can then put it on a laptop or on a notebook and see that information while the mobile force is out there, responders are out there. So they're not tethered to a server at all times. They're able to see this information while they're actually in the field, and you're able to gather that field intelligence. Another mission that we really share with the public sector, Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally useful, accessible, and useful, so that, and that's a mission that we've been on for some time. And then on the geo side, we see that as what is the geo information that's available out there, and how do we make that accessible to the public? So again, looking at a disaster response, so this is information that is provided to the public for, again, Hurricane Sandy, where you're able to see where flood zones could be, where the track of the hurricane can be. And again, it's that same look and feel that all your citizens are familiar with through a Google Maps interface. So this could be a public-facing site. And then we look at some of the more kind of call it peacetime type services that are also available, whether that's through public health or even tourism, where you're able to see in New York City the Guggenheim, and then you're able to see the indoors of the Guggenheim itself. So obviously New York City has a lot of visitors. They're able to plan their trip beforehand and actually look at things before actually being there. So that's important for citizens, for driving economic development. It's also important for field intelligence and being able to see, for example, street view. If it's in the corrections department, then they need to know, okay, what does this house look like before we actually need to go there and serve papers or what have you. So, and then on the mobile device, kind of coming back to this, we know that a lot of people are looking at Google Maps on their mobile, and this is all information that you can provide. We're a big fan of write once and deploy many, and so that same Google Maps API allows you to develop one application and then deploy to a desktop or deploy to mobile. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to touch a bit more on the workforce and asset management. This is called Google Coordinate, and it's a ready-to-use application that can be deployed, we found, in anywhere from 15 minutes, which is really the fastest, but typically in an hour to 2 hours. And what's really required is a phone number and an email address. And what you see on the left side here is a mobile view, where somebody knows where they are and knows where their team is, and then can be assigned a task. And then the dispatcher can also see, okay, where are the people on the imagery, and then where have the people been in terms of breadcrumbs themselves. So again, on the two components here are your mobile workforce, and then your dispatcher. So the mobile person is going to see the information. They're going to be able to be assigned a task. They can look at the floor plan as to where that task is and get directions. And they can also look at indoor imagery if that's available. So right there you have a workforce. They can also do a video conference with dispatch. So for example, if it's a fire response, if it's a chemical fire, that volunteer firemen might not know what the chemicals are, but they know, okay, here are the barrels. So they can either take a picture, or they can also video conference and show the surroundings of here's what the fire looks like. And then at dispatch, also offline assignments, but at dispatch, they're able to see where the field resources are, where the history is, where the assigned task is. So again, we give you that collaboration to aggregate, collaborate, and empower information. And from a dispatcher standpoint, you can also look at who responded to this emergency. Sometimes in post-emergency, in terms of reporting history logs. That's an important piece. But again, it's a ready-to-use application. You just need smartphones and then a desktop you download to your smartphone. Within 60 minutes to 2 hours, you can get this installed. So it allows you to do something very, very quickly. And then I'll wrap here with, really it's more than a map. What we see is it's what we like to think is a decision platform, whether that's for the consumer or for the enterprise. Again, where am I, what's around me, and how do I get to where I want to go? As well as the ability to see information, fully textured 3D cities, oblique imagery, terrain information. So this is all information that you can visualize using Google Geo Enterprise offerings, whether that's cloud-based or on-prem or on-premise, and it allows you to visualize that data. So we're big fans of visualization. And then with that, again, my email is scottcia@google.com if anyone wants to contact me after this. Let me hand it over to Tony from Verizon.
Yeah, I'm just going to do it up here. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. So what I'm going to be talking about on the next level of the discussion is how do we get those data points into a Google platform? And there's really a couple components. You have the wireless carrier, if you're grabbing that mobile data for mobile workforce management, AVL, or just that location base off of an individual's tablet or smartphone. And there's really two approaches that you can take when you engage an application developer, where you're either pulling the GPS off of the physical device itself, or to get it more accurate on that location plot, you can work with the carrier as well, or that developer can work with the carrier and use assisted GPS. We're actually using the satellites as well as the tower, and actually geolocation off of the tower in addition to the satellites. So those are those components that you build into your field data applications, your automated machine-to-machine, knowing where a device, if you have a portable device that's you're tracking that asset out in the field and knowing where those assets are at. And then pulling all of those data points and those field form information back into the Google platform. So a couple of the areas that Verizon has opened up on open development, we have an application innovation center down in San Francisco that is solely focused on application innovation, helping the developer community refine and improve their mobile applications to gather that data, make it relevant as it gets sent back into a database to then be visually represented on a platform like Google Spatial. We've funded a lot of development through our venture forum. If you saw our booth, there's a Vigo robot that's a telepresence device. That was provided through a lot of investment and through our innovation centers that we have. And we're not only working with application developers, but equipment and devices, smart refrigerators, devices that go in vehicles, body-worn intelligence, being able to have that video stream coming off of an officer or a worker in the field, having that video in conjunction with their application on their device, capturing that data and having that interaction and being able to see where those individuals are at. And then the security and delivery of the application is important. We have a variety of delivery mechanisms, the Play Store, the iTunes Store, as well as we have enterprise private app stores where we can build a private app store just for your agency's delivery of those authorized applications. And then all of our partnerships with Google and all of our Hughes Telematics is AVL, capturing a lot of intelligence on vehicle and assets. Even if it's a portable device, being able to take that projector and putting a device on it to track where that piece of equipment is at and see what the status of it is. We also, this is a complicated formula. What are your needs and how do you define it? And so we also get very involved in your strategy development, your architecture and design. What are your security requirements? Are you HIPAA? Do you have to do CGIS compliance? What are those security requirements around that application as it goes from a wireless mobile device through our network into your network? So we work with those components, because that's important as well, because you may be capturing very sensitive information dependent on your agency that needs to be protected, and we can strip that all off in a private network that never touches the public internet. So we have those capabilities. Then your implementation, your integration, taking that, application that you may already have, and you want to improve that and integrate that into another platform or cross-reference other data to make that relevant to the individual that's viewing that information. And then looking for new ideas, looking for new innovation on what else do we want to add to that. And I'll be sharing a couple applications that we have actually helped refine those developers with their applications to improve it from feedback from the customer. I need this. Well, how do we build that into it and make it more efficient? So one of the new things when it comes to geolocation and presence is in communications. This application is an encrypted push-to-talk service and application that can either run on a smartphone or a tablet or an MDT in a computer. But what really changes the game for the mobile workforce and government is being able to look at who's online. The green is lit up. I know I can talk to those individuals. I can push their name, see where they're at, text them, call them on a cellular phone call, or I can talk directly to them. I can create groups. I can even have tactical channels, very much like a conference call where everybody joins onto a conference bridge and everybody can talk over each other rather than a push-to-talk session or a cellular communication just one-to-one. I can have everybody on a TAC 1, TAC 2, especially if you're in a very dynamic work group environment where you have additional resources coming on scene, or you need to have eyes on from other experts into that job that's taking place, and having that collaborative work environment. And this is really where geolocation really changes it. I can actually look on the map in the app instead of pushing on the name and doing a traditional conversation. If I push on the individual, the icon, their name comes up, their title, their role, their responsibility. Now that they're lit up, I can hit push to talk and talk directly to that individual. What's even more powerful is if I click that X and have everybody visible on there, I can hit push to talk and talk to everybody that is green and available without setting up another group or calling them individually. I can zoom out all the way to a county level, city level, state level, US level. So if you have individuals that may be traveling to Nevada, Oregon, and you need to have them and you want to see where they're at and they need to be a part of this conversation, you zoom out, everybody that's visible, hit push to talk, you can talk to everybody that's visible on that map. Very powerful, transformational, especially in emergency response and first responders, being able to have that capability. Going back to school, campus, large venue, safety, again, it goes back to having an application on a device that we've worked with one of our partners on, this really changes the active intelligence coming out of a school environment or even a large venue environment. The map down at the bottom, those are teachers out on a playground. They could hit a panic button. Their icon turns red, and you can see that as the other teachers can hit their panic buttons, you can see where they're located outside the building, inside the building. You can cross-reference their student daily attendance. So I know that teacher may have 15 to 32 students with them directly in their presence, and they're moving them to safety or they're moving them out of the building as well. The other is that you can actively, when they hit their panic button, you can actively turn on everything on the device, from video to voice and audio, because they may not be able to speak, but you want to hear and listen in or even visually see what's going on inside that classroom. But it's that active intelligence that they're using Google Maps off of that application and that presence to pull into that platform. So it really changes what we see, becomes more visually an analytical tool, and gives us that next level of intelligence and ability to act upon that information that's coming from that field data. The other is, we get into, processes in the field where you have inspectors or normal processes that you have traditionally done in a paper form, making multiple, carbon copies and then having somebody data enter that. We can take that form, whatever process it is, and put it into a very logical, laid out format that is very easy to interpret, capture video, embed that into the form, capture a photo, embed that, voice notes, embed that, capture a signature, embed that, and then send it back into the database, and then re-render it out onto Google Maps. So if you're looking, and this is a disaster situation, one of the tornadoes in the Midwest, where they're sending individuals down a street, clearing it. They're sending utilities down the street, checking for gas leaks, and they're updating that data. Well, they may be from one agency, but you might have water going down there as well. You may have other entities and other agencies also doing inspections. You can consolidate all of that, and you can come back to it, and it's real-time updated. As they send, it goes into the database, and then the next person coming down, or those folks that are wanting to look at what is the status of this street, they can click on it, and they can see every individual from all the agencies that have gone down that street, who made it, who inputted it, when was it, who added stuff to it, because things may change dynamically in an environment that is constantly changing, whether it's flooding and all of that, that you can actually have that information real-time update and then call that person right from that GUI ClickUp and say, I need more detail on this. What did you actually see? I'm looking at that photo that you sent. Can you go back and relook at this and update it for us? Because we're concerned about that gas leak. So very active intelligence and rendering when you start taking those applications and off of a tablet and pushing it up into a platform that then can render it out to one-to-many. So when you look at your overall strategy, the big things that we're seeing from Verizon Wireless is the cost reduction, making that field worker more efficient, being able to capture more relevant critical data at the forefront of that data input without a lot of redundant work and operations. Machine to machine, being able to automate processes that are now monitored by sensors and having that sensor data pushed to the individual that has to analyze it and watch it and interpret it, and having that information all mashed together. And then being able to get you from, what's the right time and the progression of your applications and that data. It is a phased approach to be able to get there. There's a lot of applications that are off the shelf that we can just plug and play. But if there's specific agency needs, you're able to design what your database already has in place to that field data that's going to be collected and added to it. So there's a lot of back-end infrastructure, and we help you with that. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your presence today.
Thank you.